Hello, good evening, everyone. You're welcome to day 2 of our online parenting webinar tagged Redefining Your Parenting Journey. How was your day? I hope you had an awesome day. Mine was excellent. I had an interesting day. And yesterday we started this series on how we can redefine our parenting journey. And yesterday I started by laying down the foundation of what it is. I started by laying down the foundation of what parenting is. I also laid down the foundation of what it means to redefine your parenting journey. Another thing I discussed yesterday, I discussed the reason we need to redefine our parenting journey. I said for every phase of development your child or your children are going through, you need to review your roles, you need to review your responsibilities, and also also need to review your parenting strategy. I finally spoke about the parent child relationship. I spoke about how it's important that we build a great connection with our children. I spoke about how this unique bond is responsible, or could I say, it lays the foundation for how your child's personality will be formed, for how your child will start making choices in life, and also your child's overall behavior. So today, day 2. So for day 2, I will continue from where I stopped yesterday. I'll talk about what the parent-child relationship is, and also I'll talk about the factors that affect or that determines how your relationship will be. So, the parent child relationship is the bedrock of your parenting. How great this relationship will be is a function of the strategy you're using in raising your child. Like I said, the parent child relationship is a function of the strategy you're using in raising your child. So, as parents, how are you raising your child? What method, what strategy are you using? What strategy are you using to raise your child? According to psychology researchers, they've been able to identify about 4 different parenting strategies that different parents are using. And like I said, the method, the way the method you're using, and the way you're raising your child is one aspect of your parenting journey. So yesterday we laid down the foundation, like we spoke about the role, we spoke about the fact that the roles, your responsibilities are things we need to look at for every phase, for every developmental phase your child is going through. Another thing you need to look at is the method and the way you're using to raise your the method you're using, or the way you're raising your child. And this method and this way, we need to know if they're functional or if they're effective. And according to psychologists, this methods or these strategies in which parents use in raising their children is known as the parenting style. So before we go into what parenting strategies are, I'm going to ask a few questions. So if you have your pen, if you have your pencil, if you have your paper with you, I'll need you to respond to this question. So the first question we're going to consider is, do you do things for your children, things that your children can actually do for themselves or by themselves? Do you do these things for them? That's the first question. The second question we're going to look at is, do you solve social problems for your children, or do you solve these social problems with them, or do you allow your child to walk through the problems by themselves? So let me ask the first question again. So the first question is, do you do things for your children, things that they can ordinarily do by themselves, or do you do do you do things that your children can ordinarily do by themselves? Do you do it for them? Or second question is, do you solve problems for them? Do you solve problems for them? Or do you solve problems with them? Or do you allow them to walk through these problems on their own, to work out? So when I say walk, it's WORK, not walk through these problems on their own. The third question I'm going to ask is your parenting strategy more about preventing your child from making mistakes, or do you find ways to bring out the best in them? Another question I want you to think about is, what type of personality does your child have? How do they react to you when you try to enforce discipline, when you set rules for them, when the way you nurture them, and also how do they react to freedom generally in the home? Are your children secretive? Are they compliant? Do they negotiate? Or do they ignore rules? All these behaviors I just mentioned, if your children are secretive, if your children are defiant, if your children are compliant, if your children negotiate, or if your children simply ignore rules, are function of the method you're using to raise them. All these behaviors I just mentioned, they are function of the method you're using to raise your children. And like I said, today we're going to know if the method we're using is effective or functional, or if we need to redefine the method we're using to raise our children. So, like the tag of the webinar, redefining your parenting journey. And one of the aspects of us redefining our parenting journey is us redefining or reviewing the method we're using to raise our children. As a parenting coach, I've seen some parents struggle in terms of determining how to raise their children. So I've seen some parents struggle when it comes to raising their children. So, like I said yesterday, that our major role in the life of our children is to ensure that we raise them into well balanced and responsible individuals. And I've seen some parents actually struggle with this. I've seen some parents who are strict. I've seen some parents who are lenient. I've seen some parents who are deliberate and intentional about what they're doing. I've seen some parents who are distant, they're not involved in the life of their children. So, one question I need you to ask your children at the end of this session is, ask your children what type of parent you are. Ask them, are you the strict parent? Are you the easygoing parent? Or are you the smothering parent or the easy to talk to parent? Like I said, the type of parent you are dependent on the method or the strategy you're using to raise your children. So if I ask you, the parent, what strategy are you using? What method are you using to raise your children? Are you raising your children by default, or you are deliberate about the way you're raising them? Are you deliberate about the different areas of their development? So if the question, what type of parent am I, is still lingering, then you need to continue with this session because I'm going to talk about the different parenting methods we all use. And we'll talk about the ones that are effective, and we'll also talk about the ones that are functional. So let's keep going. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I hope you're having an awesome time. You can go to the comment section and type out your question. You can write out anything you want to know about what we're talking about. If you have questions, you can put them in the comment section. If you have comment, yeah, put them in the comment section. Thank you so much. So before I go into discussing the different parenting strategies we use, I would like to talk about the factors that determine the strategies we are presently using. As parents, like I say, where no one is born in vacuum, we're either using things that we've learned from the past, things we are learning presently, or things we've read about. So what are the factors that determine the different strategies we're using presently? The first factor is our past parenting style, meaning that the way our parents parented us, our own parents' beliefs, our parents' practice, the procedures, the family patterns. These are things that could determine the way we will raise our own children. Yesterday when I said that there are some things our parents, some methods they used in the past, which might not be um functional or effective in the 21st century. In 21st century, you have children asking questions. You have children who are very assertive. They want to know why you are asking them to do certain things. And as parents, like when during our days, our parents will say, "Oh, because I said." In fact, you cannot even ask your parents, "Mommy, why?" For what now? Instead, you would just go ahead and do what they ask you to do. But for the 21st century child, they are more aware, they are more assertive. So they ask questions, they ask questions like, "Mommy, why do you want me to do this? Daddy, can you explain further?" and all that. So if you are that parent who is still using the past parenting pattern of "I told you so" or "because I want you to do it," it's not going to work with this parent, with these children of the 21st century. So the first factor we're looking at is our past parenting style. What were the style our parents used in raising, or what were the styles your parents used in raising you? What were your parents' belief? What were the practice? What were the family patterns that were done, or what are the patterns used, or what are the patterns of your parents that are influencing the way you're raising your children now? That's one factor that determines the method or the strategy we're using in raising our children. Another method, or another factor is your personality type. Do you know your personality type? What type of person are you? Not parents now. What type of person are you? That the type of person you are will determine the type of, or the method or the strategies you're using now in raising your child. Another factor that determines the style or the strategy we're using in raising our children is your child's personality. What kind of child are you raising? Is your child a strong-willed child? Is your child the easygoing type? Is your child the life of a party? The life of a party is that kind of child you have? Your child's personality also matters in the parenting strategy you're going to use. What about your culture? That's another factor. I'm from Africa, and we have, like, you have the Yorubas. We are from Nigeria. I'm from Nigeria, so we have the Yorubas, we have the Igbos. Outside Africa, we have the Asians, we have the European. Their culture, the culture of their family, also determines the strategy they will be using in raising their children. What about your environment, where you stay? Where are you living presently? Are you living in a place where people around you are very hostile, aggressive? Or are you living in an environment where people around you are very kind and nice? These are factors that will determine the parenting style you're using now, or the parenting style you're going to use later. At the end of the session, you know which of the parenting strategies is the best. So let me just go over the factors that determines the parenting strategy we are presently using. Number one, I spoke about your parents' parenting style, your parents' belief system, your parents' practice. What do they do in the home? How do you do things in your home? I mentioned your personality. I mentioned the personality of your child. I mentioned your culture. And finally, I mentioned your environment. These are factors that determine the type of strategy you will be using in raising your children, or you're presently using in raising your children. So when we talk about parenting strategy, what is it? Like I said, parenting strategy is also known as the parenting style. This is the method or the ways that parents use or employ in raising their children. These strategy could be deliberate, could be by design, or by default. Some parents are consciously raising their children. Some parents are unconsciously using any method to raise their children. And like I said when I started, I said there are different types of there are different types of parenting styles according to psychologists, especially psychologist Diane Burmring. In the 60s, she first of all identified three parenting style. Then the fourth parenting style was identified by another group of psychologists called Macoby and Mathins. They identified the fourth parenting style. And according to Diane said there are different dimensions, different things that determines our strategies. She said our disciplinary method, the way we nurture our children, our communication styles, and also our expectation, what we expect of our children. Last week I had a session last week, and where I spoke about the fact that we have some parents who are overly strict. They have very high expectations from their children, and yet they have very or minimal support. They give them minimal support. So these are basic dimension that determines the strategy we're using now. So I said the disciplinary method you're using, your nurturing, the way you're nurturing your children, the communication styles you're using, and also your expectations of your children and the control, how you're controlling your children. So, like I said Diane identified three parenting style. We have the authoritative, authoritarian, and the permissive parenting strategy or style. Then, according to Macoby and Martins, they did their own research and they came up with the last parenting style, which is known as the uninvolved or the neglective parenting style. So, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So, so I'm going to ask some questions. So, when it comes to expectations, expectations refers to the parent's ability to control the behavior and the demand of their children. Your not the way you nurture your children has to do with how you accept and how you express love to them. Then the mode of communication. Do you have an open channel of communication? Are your children allowed to contribute to communication in the home? Or everything is just the parents? Then in terms of disciplinary method, is it punishment? Is your disciplinary method positive? Or do you use correction as a tool? Right? Or do you use correction as a tool in raising in discipline? So the first method, so I'm going to ask questions. So the first method, let's listen. Are you do you use strict discipline styles with little or no negotiation possible? Is it punishment you use the most? Is communication just one way in your home, whereby you just give rules, 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 and your children are not allowed to negotiate? Are your rules not explained? So like the example I gave earlier, once you give the rule and your children want to ask mommy why, you say, oh, because I said so, or because I'm the mom, or because I'm the father of the house. Is your parenting style less nurturing? Do you have very high expectation and provide very little of no support? So that's the first parenting style we're talking about, and that's called the authoritarian. So authoritarian parents are often termed to be disciplinarian. So is that the method you're using in raising your children? Are you strict? Do your children are they able to negotiate with you? Is your communication just one way? Do you have rules that are not explained to your children? Do you do less of nurturing? Do you show you don't show love to them the way you're meant to show love to them? Or are your expectations very high with little or no support? So that's authoritarian parenting style. The next parenting style I'll be talking about is the one where the parents indulge the children. The children are allowed to do anything they want, anytime they want. No guidance, little or no guidance, no direction. In this kind of home, the children are like friends. Your relationship is more of friendship, buddies, and your role as a parent is not. In fact, that your role as a parent is not even shown at all. When it comes to discipline, you are very, very lenient. No rules. You allow your children to figure out problems by themselves. No support. When it comes to communication, you have an open channel of communication. Your children can come to you. Your children can come and talk to you. Your children can actually decide for themselves what they want. They don't need to come to you for direction, or this parenting style, the parents, everything about nurturing is high. Here, nurturing is high, discipline is low, communication is high, expectations low. So are you that kind of parent? And this parenting style, this parenting method is actually known as the permissive one. Are you the permissive parent where your child can do anything? There are no rules, there are no expectations, no discipline, nothing. Is this the kind of parent you are? Then the next parenting style I'll talk about, or strategy, is the one where the parent is not involved at all. There is no love, no communication, no expectation, no nurturing, nothing. The child is just there. Maybe it's the nanny or the driver or other people taking care of the child. You have no input in the life of the child. The only input you have to be, oh, you are a provider, you are the one providing school fees, there's shelter, that's all. And in this parenting style, the children feel neglected. You might provide everything for them, but for the fact that you do not, there's no input. You're not imputing in their life. You have no input in their lives. No expectation. Communication is very limited. There's no discipline. You're not there. You're not just there. And if you are this kind of parent, there's a lot of the negative effects of this parenting is quite high. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. And the last parenting style I'll be talking about is the authoritative parenting style. Yes, the authoritative. I call this the effective and smart parenting style. This is the effective and smart parenting style. Here, the parents are reasonable and nurturing. Here, the parents set high goals. However, these goals are clear. And also, the parents in this parenting, that use this parenting strategy, they also set, apart from setting high expectations for their children, they also have proper support for the child to achieve his or her goal. Children with parents who demonstrate this parenting style tend to be self-disciplined. They're able to think, they're independent thinkers, they think for themselves. Parents who use this parenting style have rules, clear rules. They've set their rules, it's clear, and they've explained the reason behind the rules for their children. They communicate frequently. Here, there's an open channel of communication. The parents communicate appropriate, the communication is appropriate to the child's level of understanding. These sets of parents are very nurturing, very, very nurturing. So, the authoritative parent, they have high expectation, they give emotional and physical and all the support they can give to their children. They they you know they allow their children a certain level of independence. There's a mutual respect between the parent and the child. And one of the outcome of this type of parenting style is that the children are actually high achievers. The children are highly self-reliant. They are not deviant, and they have better relationship with other people, because their parents have raised them with, that confidence that you can do anything you want to do. Another benefit of this parenting style is that it's allowed, so like I said earlier, it makes the children independent thinkers. It allows them to, they have the freedom of thought. They can question, they can ask questions, and the parents are ready to answer the questions. The parents encourage them to think independently. In this kind of parenting style, there is a strong bond between the parents and the child. The parents communicate what they expect. So these are the things they expect from you, and they communicate. Communication is open. There's an intimacy between the parent and the child. There's a high level of trust, because the child knows that the mom or the father has got their back. So back to you. What kind of parents are you? What, based on the different strategies I've explained, so which one of them are you practicing? Are you the are you parenting by design, or you're parenting by default? Have you been able to identify any lapse in the method you're using in parenting your child right now? Is there anything you would like to review? Is there anything you're going to redefine in the method you're using to raise your children? So, are you the parent that is high when it comes to expectations, high when it comes to discipline, low when it comes to emotional support, low when it comes to communication? Or you are the parent that is high when it comes to love, high when it comes to communication, low when it comes to discipline, low when it comes to emotional support? Or you're the parent that's, you're low in everything, no discipline, no support, no communication. The only thing you do is just provide money and all that. Or you're the parent that has been able to balance the discipline, the expectation, um, love, open communication. You've balanced it out. Which type of parent are you? So, assignment for tonight, your assignment for tonight is that I'll need you to go over the video again and identify the factors or the areas that you are not intentional about. Maybe it's in your discipline method, maybe it's in your communication method, maybe it's your expectation, maybe it's certain the way you love or nurture your children. Identify the factors where you are low, or the lapses just go over, identify the lapses. Once you are able to do that, send me an email. Tomorrow I'll be available for free 15-minute session where we can discuss this. And you know, so the first two people to submit the assignment will get the free 15-minute session. Yeah, free 15-minute session. The first two people to submit the assignment will get the free 15-minute session. Then tomorrow we're going to talk about how we can implement these parameters I've discussed, how we can implement a proper discipline plan in the home, how we can implement a proper communication method in the home, how we can implement setting proper expectations for our children, how we can love our children based on their love languages, based on who God has created them to be. So tomorrow, that's what we'll be discussing. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. Let me just do a short recap of what I've discussed today. So I started by talking about the parent-child relationship, which we started yesterday. And I said the parent-child relationship is a function of the style. I said the method. I said the parent-child relationship is the bedrock of your parenting. How great this relationship is a function of the strategy you're using right now in raising your children. So if your parenting, your parent-child relationship is not, if your connection with your child is very low, hmm, then I guess it's a function of the strategy you're using to raise your child. However, if you have a great parent-child relationship, that is also a function of the strategy you're using in raising your child. And I said that there are different methods parents use. I was going to discuss the different methods for you to be able to identify which particular one you're using. And the one you're using now, is it functional? Is it effective? Is it by default or by design? And I also spoke about the fact that there are different factors that determines the strategies we're using in raising our children. I said the way your parents raised you is a factor or is a determining factor of how you're raising your children. I spoke about your parents, your personality. I also spoke about the personality of your children. I also spoke about the culture of your family. Where are you from? I spoke about the environment you're living in presently. So these are factors that determine your parenting strategy or parenting style you're using. Then I spoke about the different parenting style. I said we have the authoritative, we have the authoritarian, we have the permissive, and we also have the uninvolved. I identified all these parenting style. I explained the characteristics of this parenting style. And I spoke about the one that is very effective. I said the parenting style that is most effective is the one where the parent gives adequate support to the children, emotional support. The parents have set clear rules and expectations for the children. The parents have proper communication with the children. The parents are very nurturing and the parents set goals. However, there is support given to these children. So, thank you so much, everyone. So tomorrow is another day. We continue day 3 tomorrow. We're done with day 1. We're done with day 2. So day 3 tomorrow we have a conversation again. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Have a nice evening. Bye.